When Frank Lucas pushed open the door to Bumpy Johnson's favorite restaurant, carrying a briefcase stuffed with $100,000 in cash, the air seemed to freeze. Every head turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks stopped halfway to plates. Glasses hung suspended on their way to lips. This wasn't just money. It was a declaration of war disguised as respect. What happened in the next 10 minutes would decide whether Frank Lucas walked out of there on his own 2 feet or was carried out in a black body bag. And what makes this scene absolutely insane is that just a few weeks earlier, Frank Lucas was nobody. He was Bumpy Johnson's driver, the guy who waited in the car, picked up dry cleaning, delivered envelopes, ran errands. An invisible man. But on that day, he decided to stop being invisible. The restaurant was packed. Bumpy Johnson had died only days before, and when a king falls, everyone shows up. Not just to pay respects, but to smell the power vacuum in the air. There were Bumpy's old soldiers, men who had spent decades trafficking, killing, and surviving right beside him. There were the Italian mob bosses who had maintained an uneasy truce with Bumpy for years. There were the young, hungry dealers who thought this was finally their moment. Everyone was watching everyone else. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and that's exactly when Frank Lucas walked in. He wasn't invited, he wasn't announced, but he had a plan. He placed the black leather briefcase on the memorial table with a heavy thud, like a judge's gavel. The sound echoed through the silence. He unlatched it slowly, almost ceremonially, and there they were, neat stacks of crisp $100 bills, perfectly banded, $100,000. In 1972, that kind of money bought houses. It bought cars. It bought loyalty. It bought armies. Frank didn't speak at first. He let the money do the talking. After a few eternal seconds, he looked around the room and said, calm but firm, "You can honor Bumpy however you want, but respect isn't free. It's bought, and it's kept." The words landed like a grenade with the pin pulled. In any other situation, Frank would already be dead. He had no territory, no crew, no name. Half the men in that room had killed for far less. So why didn't anyone draw a gun? Because Frank understood something most people never learn. Violence is easy. Public violence is incredibly expensive. Killing Frank Lucas at Bumpy Johnson's wake, in front of dozens of witnesses, would spark a full-scale war. Not just a street war, but one that would bring cops, FBI, newspapers, cameras. No one in that room wanted that kind of heat. So instead of bullets, they did math. One of Bumpy's oldest lieutenants stood up. A man in his mid-50s, face carved from stone, eyes that had seen too much death. He circled the table slowly, staring at Frank, then at the money, then back at Frank. "Who the hell is this guy?" Frank didn't flinch. Respect is business. You either pay for it, earn it the hard way, or spend it. I brought payment. In that moment, Frank Lucas stopped being a driver and became a problem. He didn't beg. He didn't ask permission. He didn't bow. He simply stated a fact. And in a room full of men who respected power above everything else, that was the only language that mattered. Suddenly a colder voice cut through the air, an Italian voice. "You don't make gestures like that in my presence." Carmine Trentino, one of the most feared Italian mob bosses in New York. This was the moment Frank could have died. Trentino had killed men for far less. But Frank had done his homework. Killing him there would cost too much, and showing fear would only speed things up. A younger dealer laughed mockingly. "You can't buy this, man. This is respect, not money." Frank didn't even blink. On the street, they're the same thing. Money buys muscle, buys lawyers, buys silence. I'm not buying love. I'm buying a seat at the table. That's when the back room filled up. It was no longer a wake. It was a negotiation. Men in suits, old allies, proxies from the Italian families, everyone calculating how much it would cost to say yes versus how much it would cost to say no. Hours passed. Cigar smoke filled the air. Voices rose and fell. Deals were made and broken. In the end, a decision was reached. 6 months. That's what they gave him. 6 months to prove he could run the business without starting a war, without drawing heat, without embarrassing anyone. If he failed, they would kill him. Frank walked out of that restaurant alive. But he didn't walk out safe. Every gangster in Harlem was now watching him. Every rival was waiting for his first mistake. And Frank knew it. When he got home that night, his wife Eva was sitting at the kitchen table. She didn't hug him, she just looked at him and said, "You made them see you." Frank replied, almost without emotion, "And I made them think twice, for now." Frank didn't just want power, he wanted control. He studied how Bumpy ran Harlem and decided to do it differently. He built an organization that operated like a corporation. He paid fixed salaries instead of splitting profits. His men worked for him, not with him. Loyalty became something he could budget. He put Nicky Barnes out front, flashy, loud, charismatic. While Nicky soaked up the spotlight, Frank stayed in the shadows running the machine. Then came the masterstroke. He cut out the middlemen, went straight to the source in Southeast Asia. Better product, much lower cost. Harlem was flooded with pure, cheap heroin. They called it blue magic, and it made Frank richer than Bumpy had ever been. But success brings visibility, and visibility is poison in the underworld. Frank thought he could manage the attention. For a while he did. Money bought protection, it bought silence, it bought time. But then came the mistakes, expensive clothes, public appearances, and Nicky Barnes showing up in a chinchilla coat at a major boxing match, caught on camera for the whole world to see. That coat became a symbol, and it became evidence. While Frank was building his empire, a quiet detective named Richie Roberts was watching. He didn't chase glamour. He chased patterns, new suits, new cars, clean operations where chaos used to reign. He made lists, followed the money, squeezed the weak links. Then one low-level guy talked. He told Roberts about the payroll system, about the envelopes, about how Frank ran everything like a corporation. And he mentioned the coat. The arrests came fast. Federal agents, local police, raids across Harlem, doors kicked in, documents seized. The empire crumbled in weeks. Frank was arrested and faced a choice: spend the rest of his life in prison or cooperate. He chose survival. He testified. He gave up mobsters, cops, politicians. Hundreds of arrests followed. Dozens of careers ended. To the streets, Frank became a snitch. To Frank, it was just business. He served his time, got out, and lived the rest of his life as a ghost from another era. When he died, his legacy was still debated, because Frank Lucas was both a genius and a disaster. He rose from nothing with discipline and audacity, and he destroyed himself by believing he could shine without consequences. That moment at Bumpy Johnson's wake bought him a throne, but it also painted a target on his back that never faded. In the criminal underworld, visibility buys power fast, but it also guarantees your fall. And Frank Lucas learned that the hardest way possible. If you were on the edge of your seat the whole time and want more true crime stories told exactly like this, raw, intense, and straight to the point, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We drop new videos every week, and you don't want to miss the next one. Drop a like if Frank's move blew your mind. Comment Blue Magic below if you knew this story already, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp.